Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Love and Life Elevated. My name is James.
Hi, I'm Deborah.
And we are so grateful for you to make time for us today. And this topic is really necessary. It's necessary for me. You and I were talking about this earlier today, and it's really all about everything from resilience to overcoming challenges. And how do we be brave right now? And I don't mean brave like foolhardy. I mean like sort of a conscious courage that we can predictably bring to life every single day, because I'm sure I'm not alone when I tell you this is a hard time for me. It's a hard time for many. And I feel like we need to make a decision about whether or not we are going to show up and continually be the change we wish to see and be in the world. And that's not a cliche. That's an opportunity and an invitation right now. So we're really excited to share with you some really cool stuff about resilience, right, sweetheart?
Sure. And you're calling it resilience, but what you said to me earlier is that you wanted to talk about doing hard things. So I think
that's almost like the world right now. Living here is doing hard things.
To your point, doing hard things is what builds resilience. So we're talking about both. We're talking about all of it. And what I wanted to start with asking you, I believe there's two components in doing hard things, maybe more actually. There's the physical aspect of doing something physically tough, but then there's the mental, emotional, spiritual aspect, a tough conversation, a silent retreat. For many of us, meditation is doing a hard thing. For you, you could give me as many examples as you want, but is there anything that sticks out for an example for you of don't say cold plunge, because we all know that you cold plunge every day and that it's hard every time.
No, I have the one.
Okay, we're ready.
Well, can I have two?
Yes.
Yeah, I think there's two. For me, the first, and I think it's the gateway to everything, and I could get emotional here because this is the gateway to everything I have today, getting sober. That, oh boy, right there it is right immediately. I am so grateful that I faced it. I'm so grateful that I did what I had to do to have the life I have today. So that's a big one. That's a spiritual one. That's a physical one. That's a historical one in my family. So yeah, man, my goodness, that's my big one. And that gave me permission once I started my spiritual path, which first getting sober, and then secondly, doing my first spiritual retreat.
Ooh.
Which was so hard because the first thing I did, and it's ridiculous. I'm the kind of person, if you know me, and I don't say this with any ego, I tend to do something much harder than I need to do. It's just my nature. And I'm working on that. I don't want to always make everything so hard. But you can do like a 3-day, a 10-day, they call it vipassanas. And there's something called the datun, which is a Buddhist word that basically means you will be doing a month of silence. So the first time I ever did any retreat, any spiritual thing of meditation, I signed up for 30 full days. 30 full days of silence by myself in a little tiny cabin in the middle of nowhere. And oh my gosh, that was so hard because I had to face myself. And I had to face just all the limitations I've had in myself, the negative chat I had inside myself, all the ways in which I didn't feel I was worthy. I never had the time to really sit long enough to have those things catch up with me. And then more importantly, love them versus deny them. Love them so I could alchemize them into being things that could be sacred teachers for me versus these dark things that I thought were only going to make me feel small or diminished or frightened about being the person I knew in my heart I would love to be. So, wow, jumped right in.
I love several things about that, and then I have a follow-up questions. One is we all know that you love to talk, so I can imagine how hard that was just sitting in your own silence. And I would imagine I could picture you just having a conversation with yourself.
With the squirrels, with the deer that walk by, going, hey, you guys got some time for me? I'd love to chat. Yeah, you're right, because I do love to talk. It's part of my therapy is working through things verbally and all those things. So, yes.
So what do you, in retrospect, what did you gain from that? What part of resilience, that's a broad term, what does resilience mean to you in that experience?
I think resilience means for me is that I can do hard things, and I do hard things over time, or really get into the hard thing and do not try to, leave the hard thing, but actually follow through and complete the hard thing. It teaches me a lot about what my capacity is. And I think that's really what's up for me these days. with the more that the world really seems to be really bringing a lot of teachings in that are really hard and about keeping hope alive and keeping love open, I've gone through some hard things over time that have taught me that I have capacity to do things over time, that I don't have a short little window that I can only do things. And I think that's for many of us who are in this spiritual life right now and potentially living consciously right now. We know that we're in this for the long run right now. This is a time of how deep is your spiritual practice? How much is your physical resilience willing to be taking care of this vessel, this temple, so you can show up every single day and be the light and be the change? It's taught me those things more than anything, sweetheart. How about you?
Well, I want to piggyback on that and why, when you were talking about the 30 days, that's a lot of hard days, a lot of hard things, a lot of hard experiences. And what the research is showing is how that builds neuroplasticity.
Yes.
So that the resilience with repeated exposure to the challenges, which was 30 days of repeated exposure, 60 minutes of challenge every hour, that it built up your resilience so that you could face those difficult challenges, because now you've ingrained that into your neuroplasticity and into that anterior cingulate aspect and portion of your brain.
Exactly. And I think that is such a great thing. So the science around this is really key for all of us to understand, is that particularly when you grew up and, has gone through something hard in their life, whether it was a childhood trauma experience, whether it's something you've had, something today you're going through, if you've had any trauma in your life, there's going to be a loop. And it's neuroplastic. Trauma creates a very deep neuroplastic experience. And if we don't have something to interrupt it or replace it, and how we replace it is time and time showing up, doing the hard thing, working with love and acceptance, working with self-compassion over and over and over again, being present with what's hard, will immediately and over time start to dent and then interrupt and eventually kind of move you out of that one loop of trauma, that one loop of dark, and into a new loop of possibility, a new loop of hope. So for me, 30 days of this was just a continual reminder that I could do hard things, that I was worthy of showing up, and that love was going to be my default versus trauma or fear or darkness.
I'll tell you what shows up for me. Often it isn't even that there's like one experience that stands out for me, but I am somebody who really tries to avoid confrontation. Confrontation is really, really hard for me. Speaking my truth. It's not so much speaking my truth that's hard, but it's if I just have to have a difficult conversation. And I do know that in our relationship, there's been moments of difficult conversation. I think I avoid that less because you're my safe place. But it may be with a really good friend or another family member. And there's so much buildup, so much angst prior to that when I can do and have the difficult conversation, the amount of release that occurs on the other side, it's almost like running a race and having those endorphins that flood in afterwards.
I love that for you.
Yeah.
And I've seen that in our relationship over time, that your willingness to actually stand in your truth, and you do it in all kinds of ways. I mean, every day your physical disciplines, the way in which you have your spiritual practice, you're very disciplined with your time and all the things, honey. And I think all those have probably given you permission to believe you are worthy of doing these harder things. And I think confrontation's an interesting one, right? Because you're also a peacemaker. That's one of your experiences in your family, but also just in life as a healer and as a clinician. So all those things make a lot of sense. But here's what I'd love to ask you about that. Do you find when you actually that this is going to be a difficult conversation, and you kind of build up all this, how do you find yourself actually then leaning into it and going for it?
Well, I know that there's some practices that can help all of us, whether it's a difficult conversation, or I want to use another example after I talk about this, but it's journaling. It's journaling how I want the outcome to go. What are the words I want to use? What are the words I don't want to use? So not getting into that immediate defensive position, but like having a script, a plan in mind. And then breathing practices are so key just to get self-regulated, get my nervous system wired for peace and productivity versus like claws are out. So meditation, mindfulness, journaling, I think those are the keys to get me in that right mindset. So along with that, I do have a story that I was thinking about doing hard things. And for any woman who has gone through labor and delivery, that's really a hard thing. And it's hard for the partner as well, right? I was a nightmare when I was having delivering our babies. And I have the blessing of having trained in obstetrics. So when we were going through school together and I was doing the obstetrics tract in Oregon, we did natural childbirth, which was home delivery, home birth. And this was before we had kids. And I would say, oh, I know it's hard, but little did I know, right? And we would encourage, and a lot of women would just show up with a birth plan. Here's the plan, which is beautiful to have, like this idea of how you want things to go. But I'll tell you what, once that labor kicks in, the plan goes out the window. So you may want, in my case, a beautiful playlist. Well, you don't know. I yelled at James for putting the music on. What you want to have, which is why Lamaze classes work, why labor delivery classes work, you want to practice things like the breathing practices, the mindfulness, the nervous system regulation, because that's truly the tool that you're going to need to rely on through the hard things. Same thing with like running a marathon. One of the hardest physical things secondary to childbirth that I did was the half Ironman triathlon, which I was so inspired by watching you with your fulls. But man, that's the hardest physical challenge I had to do, especially that open water ocean swim. But on the other side of that, wow, it's amazing.
Yeah, I love all of that, sweetheart. So you might be thinking to yourself, okay, in my story right now, what is my hard thing, or what are the hard things I've been through in my life? And here's what's great about the practice of doing hard things. There's the neuroplasticity piece, which helps to change the way our brain structures. And how should we say, it helps to quiet the amygdala, where that overactive fear center that many of us have had or presently have, how does it open up parts of our mind and our brain that allow us to believe in ourselves? So the thing I'd love to encourage you to do is really look at your day and think about the things that you maybe do already that are hard, but you've normalized them, right? You just normalize it. You know, I work this hard at this thing, and I've got this particular family member, I've got this particular job. Trust me, you're already doing hard things, but here's the difference. If you don't recognize that you do hard things, the brain doesn't get excited. The anterior cingulate doesn't get excited. So it's not that we get, dramatic about the hard things, but we just notice it. Tufts University, one of my favorite studies that's ever been done is called the self-recognition study, which simply is, at the end of your day, take 3, 5, 10 minutes and literally write down the amazing things that you did, so you don't take them for granted. The science is absolutely so powerful. It talks about self-esteem and self-confidence. It talks about healing trauma. It talks about how an overactive amygdala with fear can start to quiet itself, where creativity and art starts to come. On top of that, self-compassion, compassion for others. It is literally one of the most powerful things that we can do. Yeah, gratitude practices are amazing. This is a whole other evolution of gratitude. We're sort of grateful for the things that we do every single day as human beings that we could so easily overlook because, yeah, it's just what I do and it's what I've always done. But if we don't recognize it, it doesn't give us the same power.
And when I talk about my just freak out when it comes to that confrontation, once we have it, it actually builds deeper relationships. So doing hard things builds deeper relationships, self-trust, self-recognition. Self-trust is everything. And going back to the idea that doing hard things is uncomfortable, let's talk about how living in your comfort zone, or that area of plateau, how that really diminishes any personal, longevity, number one, happiness, number two, relationships just don't thrive. How do people who are afraid, because some people, that brings up a lot of fear of doing something hard, and they're just so comfy and listen, there's a time of every single day where those comfy clothes come on. And I'm not talking about comfy clothes. I'm talking about getting uncomfortable because you're pushing yourself in a way that is challenging. It's going to build your self-confidence, build your self-trust, build your resilience. What do you think about comfort zone and how people take that leap outside?
I think comfort zones are necessary at times. And I think we all know when we're kind of feeling like, oh gosh, I'm burning out, I'm exhausted, I haven't got any more to give. And that's the perfect time to retreat. And you really name it. I'm naming this as a time I'm going to retreat. But I think if we reside in the comfort zone, every great study on, what's it called? Entropy. Right?
Yes.
When we literally start to fall apart.
Did you read my notes? Because that was in here.
Was it really?
Yes.
I love that. So 32 years. This is it. Right? So entropy is interesting. It's all the idea that what we don't continue to grow will eventually break down. And we know that from muscle. Muscle's the perfect metaphor. If we're not working our muscle, it'll eventually go into something called sarcopenia. And sarcopenia is the voluntary loss of muscle, which is the number one biomarker for longevity. So once you stop working with resistance and putting your physicality into a daily experience of growth, you will start to decline and eventually you will die earlier, according to science. I know it sounds a little dramatic to say that, but most likely you will. Our brain loves to learn. There's 3 things that I do every single day. I have a structural discipline, I have a growth discipline, and I have a reactive discipline. Those 3 disciplines really keep me in that place where I'm constantly expanding. I read every day. I try to share with you every single day. And I really look at the power of how I look at patterns in my life that at one time I just kind of allowed myself to accept this is me reacting, this is me whatever, paying attention and saying, opportunity for growth here, opportunity to realize this is something that's not working for anymore. I'm constantly in that student mindset. And I think for anyone who's going, well, comfort zone's pretty awesome. You don't know what I've been through. I get it. But we have to understand that can be a place that we return to heal, to recenter, to recalibrate, to give ourselves permission to go back out in life. Brené Brown said it all the time, right? Vulnerability is the birthplace of our common humanity. We are most vulnerable when we're in that growth place. We're most vulnerable and alive when we choose it actively because we know this is where our awakening happens. This is where our superpower lies. So we really have to understand we get comfort and the necessity of it, but we cannot set up shop there too long. If we do, we start to move into decline.
And you're talking about this student mindset, and that to me is the same as a growth mindset. And how growth, I had a note here, how it's all tied into this research of doing hard things. Growth mindset, epigenetics, post-adversity growth, oxytocin increases after emotionally vulnerable conversations. I love that you tied in vulnerability. And then going back to last week's discussion on oxytocin. I mean, you do a Google search on oxytocin right now. Everyone's talking about it. And so guess what? Do something hard. We didn't actually maybe we touched on it in our conversation. We talked about
intimacy and vulnerability. Mm-hmm. But I think sweetheart, I think for you and I, we talk about this all the time. How do we show up in times like these? Mm-hmm. And how do we, when we're feeling judgmental or we're feeling scared, how do we work with it and try to bring it into a better place where it helps us to elevate and then hopefully elevate others? And that's vulnerable these days because if you are coming out as a person who's hopeful, someone who's coming from their heart and that really is their channel, man, you can be judged, you can be diminished, you can have a lot of hate pointed your way.
I think it really comes down to personal growth. When you did that 30-day Datun, and it really was hard, but you grew as a person from it. I'm currently in a new master's degree program, and it's really hard, and it just started. But I know every moment that I'm in it, my personal growth, my personal development is increasing, and thus so is my confidence. And it's vulnerable to admit, oh my gosh, it's been so long since I've done this, and being a student again, having the student mindset. But guess what? This is growth mindset.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
Yeah.
And it's awesome.
And I can say as your partner, and if you're in a relationship, this is something I'm loving right now. This week, because this has just started for you. I know when you get quiet. before you've got something you're going to go and do. You're going to have a call with somebody. You're going to be going into a certain reading, a certain writing experience. You get quiet because I know that you're working through your trust and you're working through your self-belief.
Yeah.
And I, as a companion, and you as a companion to your person, be that intimate. I mean, I just want to say, be that intimate with the persons that you love, your kids, your spouse, your partner, your lover, because we do know when they're going through hard things, and they probably know when you are as well. And that's a beautiful time for a different type of intimacy. Like, I'm going to hold this for you. I'm going to hold this for you. I'm going to breathe this into you because I believe in you. I love you. And I love when you pop out the other side of that reading or that writing assignment and you come out of your office and there's a completely different light in your eyes and you carry yourself differently. We need to celebrate that in our partner when they're doing hard things too. Don't let this be just about yourself. This is we see people going and doing hard things every single day. Celebrate them, notice them, love on them.
It's really about rewiring our brains because our brains and our hormones are wired to avoid fear, avoid threat. And so sometimes hard things feel threatening. And the only way to override that, rewrite our epigenetic blueprint, rewire our brain with the neuroplasticity is to do that thing.
Love that. And let's kind of bring this full circle because what I really think you just touched on is huge. Many of us have a family history. We'll look at our parents and the fear that they had, the challenges they've had, the things that they were most not willing to look at. Generations of that. That is epigenetics. Well, one of the most beautiful things, and something I've had some fun with this when I've been doing talks, I tell people how much I embrace my role as a black sheep. And taking that idea of a black sheep, someone who's not afraid to be the iconoclast in your family, the one who challenges norms, the one who actually brings light into places that for generations we haven't brought light into. This is a time where you get a chance to literally rewrite the way your genes express themselves. If there is a history of some pretty sad music, you have the opportunity to orchestrate healthier, happier, beautiful music by the way in which you decide to show up each and every day and love yourself into that evolution. Because my goodness, when you do this, you are not just breaking a cycle of generations, you're setting up your kids, your family, your friends, by just being around you for seeing what it looks like, and then their genes respond in kind. We become so beautifully contagious when our self-love and our self-care becomes activism in that way.
Yes, and I personally see you as a unicorn, not a black sheep. Black sheep has this connotation of darkness, other, loner, but I think you're like this colorful unicorn that has a very unique character.
That's good, honey.
So let's end on that.
Yeah.
And tell us what you're doing that's really hard. How can we support you and hold that vision for you? We are here for it. We're all about it. And we know that by you expressing your unique and authentic self and doing those hard things that you are inspiring everyone around you and you're making the world a better place just with your energy and your love and your light.
You inspire me. I love you.
Thank you. I love you too.
You inspire us, and I love you as well. It's not too early to tell you that in this relationship. I'm going to go ahead and just say it. So thanks for making time for us today.
Thank you.
And let's not be afraid to do what it is that we know is inside of our heart that wants to have all four chambers come to life. We'll see you soon. Until then, much love. All the blessings.
Take care.
Bye for now.